Namaskar, Bharat. For the first time ever, we are hosting the MBA Times Fair event, specifically tailored towards the Indian candidates. But if you're joining from any other part of the world, feel free to stay because the frameworks can still be useful to you. The series of live streams will consist less of marketing like other MBA fairs do, but more of quality content that focuses on completing important sections of your MBA applications like resume, essays, letters of recommendations, etc. Depending on the availability, we will dive deeper into the application of what we learn here by looking at the samples. So let's get to it. As you can see right here, we'll be discussing New York University's Stern School of Business. This is where you will be if you manage to get in, and your odds are going to go up if you stay and watch the entire session till the end. And wait for a little surprise before we start looking at the samples. So let's put this image in the background and look at the samples and the agenda for the day. Couple of things before we look at the agenda. First, you can scan this QR code that's on the screen that will take you to a WhatsApp group. This WhatsApp group will serve as a medium for you to ask any questions while the session goes on, and towards the end, when we'll have live Q&A sessions, you can get those answered live. If you have questions later on, the group can serve as a medium to get those answered too. And it eliminates the biggest problem that many people have had with webinars in the past, that their questions are not getting answered. And we've just solved this problem for you. So please scan this QR code and you'll be taken to the WhatsApp group. It's completely optional. If you don't want to get your questions answered, it's all right. Now, let's look at the agenda. We'll look at what values define the school and the class profile first, which will help you understand the statistical requirements and personality checks required to get into NYU Stern. Next, we'll look at the essays and the resume, which are obviously the backbone of your application. In a way, if you think about this, we'll start with the foundation, where what will be the foundation of your entire application. And then we'll move on creating the structure through proper reinforcements. We'll look at the LOR samples, and I will give you the tips on that. And it goes without saying that you will not be the ones writing that, so you can share the sample with someone else who will be writing it. It will also be shared in the same Q&A group for which the QR code is still up for scanning. We'll come back to this in the end also. If you've not been able to scan this now, it's completely fine. We'll come to that in the very end. Moving on, we have the class profile here and the motto right on top, which says change, dare it, dream it, and drive it. Change is what defines NYU Stern, just like we saw change is what defines Stanford in yesterday's session. And there are only a few schools that really believe that change is something that is their driving principle. So change is what defines New York University. Even their essay is about the same thing. So what exactly is that value system that New York University talks about? So the first thing in the value system is that you should be pursuing excellence, someone who looks for opportunities which help them excel and they strive for that excellence. IQ plus EQ, this is most common in NYU Stern's almost all the info sessions, they talk about this. So someone with a balance, someone who is smart enough in terms of like the book smart and also somewhat street smart. They use that term on their value system in their website also. So a good combination of book smart and street smart. And EQ is also about emotional intelligence, where you have to understand what exactly is the other person feeling, what exactly is the value system of the other person, so that you can understand and empathize with the other person. And there is a big spectrum of emotional quotient. So if you're someone whose people skills are really good, EQ must always be higher. In general, that's the assumption. So that's IQ plus EQ. Then there is the responsibility, there's like the radically responsible attitude that they talk about, that someone who loves taking responsibility for others, someone who wants to be responsible for the welfare of the world, someone who wants to be responsible for the change they are about to bring. So someone who is responsible for that. And obviously the connected community, because NYU Stern is in New York and it's a well-connected city. So someone who is really good at networking, someone who can blend in with the community and be a part of what the Stern community is all about. So those are the guiding principles, or you can say the values of NYU Stern. Looking at the class profile, as you can see at the bottom, you can see the class size is 336. That's neither too big nor way too small, but 336 is a decent number to have. More would have been great because it is in the city where Columbia is also there, but Columbia has much, much bigger class size. The GRE average is quant 164, verbal 163. So you can say like it's 327, but for Indian candidates, like I said, it has to be more specific to the candidates who I'm having this webinar for. Having a score which is about 4 or 5 points higher than this will only help you in the admissions process because the Indian candidates are considered overrepresented by the admissions team. So this can actually help you. The GMAT average is at 737 for the legacy edition. For the focus edition, at 682. And for the people who are coming from the overrepresented pool, according to the admissions team, uh, I believe the best possible way you can show your academic merit is to target the 99th percentile so that you can actually be considered competitive. So that's my suggestion. International students, 43%, but this also contains the number of dual citizens. So some of the American citizens also have citizenships of other countries, so they can also be considered international students by this measure. The work experience is at 5.1 years, which is basically more or less the same for most schools, but anywhere between 3 to 8 years in range will be fine, where you will be perfectly all right if you have that range of experience. That brings us to the essays now. The first essay is the change essay. And there are two essays of NYU Stern. I would actually suggest you to treat these essays as one. So this essay is basically a description, so basically like a story. So essay goes something like this. In today's global business environment, the only constant is change. Using NYU Stern's brand call to action, we want to know how you view change. So change dash it. So what's your motto? Because we saw the motto, change, dare it, dream it, drive it, which was there on the previous page. And what exactly is the motto for you? So now that is very specific to you. I'll just give you a framework and an example on how to deal with these things. So you just have to fill in the blank with one word of your choice. Why exactly is that word important to you? And how exactly will that be useful to you when you're at Stern? And how exactly will you be embracing that while it's done? So that's also something they've said in the question. The idea here is to treat both the essays, the first one and the second one, as the same. So the second essay is about picking 6 images, and we'll come to that later, right after we see this. So an example here. So many of the people have said that change, embrace it is something that many people use because embrace is the word right there in the question. But the easier way of treating this question is to first thing understand what your life has been like in the past and what were the events of change that you have observed in your life. So change, embrace it becomes much easier because when you say change, embrace it, you kind of eliminate that option of like being afraid of change, trying to like, make things happen. Those things are all good, but the better way of dealing with this is to understand what exactly matters most to you on the inside. For example, you are someone who is probably from a underprivileged background, and for you, change is the biggest thing that you have been craving for. So you want a change in life that kind of changes your situation altogether, and you are someone who is living the life that you have always dreamed of. So change in that situation is completely different, where you want something to come and you just want to take that. So that's basically the idea, that change welcoming it, change strive for it, change want it. So those kinds of words can actually be applicable. Then there are some people who are probably facing some systemic inequities. So that's a different story. So change, make it like you want to bring that change. So change, bring it. You want to bring the change in the world. So that's another way of dealing with that question. So reflecting on your personal experiences and then choosing that word because it has defined your whole life will make the most sense. So the easier way to deal with this question is just saying change, embrace it, and just say some generic stuff. That will not make an impactful application. So you have to show why do you want things to change? Why exactly change an important part of your life? So change, leverage it is also there for some people. So whenever some things change, a lot of businessmen are able to make a lot of money out of those changes. So change, leverage it. There is another way of dealing with that. So it's up to you which word you choose. But the idea here is that first of all, you give a backstory, as you can see on the right there. So backstory is important because it will clarify why exactly is that word important to you. So if that backstory is in short, that's good. You don't have to go too much in depth. This will do the job for you. Next, we have the other side of this essay, which will be the plans at stern. So what exactly are your plans at stern and how do you want to embrace the thing that you say you're going to change? So you can always say that like about your career, for example, you have to think about your goals. If you want to go into finance, for example, like investment banking or private equity venture capital, NYU is a great place for that. You're showing them why you're going to be a part of those clubs and you're going to embrace that changed environment and contribute to the growth of every single person who will be there around you. So that's the idea, that you're someone who is making that change happen at Stern, maybe at club, maybe at a center. There is a finance center at Stern. I think so. If you talk about those kinds of changes, that at Stern, I would just leverage this one resource, which is probably the finance center or like the club. And I want to pursue my goal while giving back to the community and embracing all the people who are coming with me. That is basically the idea here. So to summarize what I have said, because I know I have said a lot of words and the video recording will only be available for a little bit, divide the first essay into two different parts. So the first part will deal with the backstory, where you're giving them an idea of why exactly is that word important to you and what kind of like a flashback event happened that made you the person you are towards the change. So that's the first part. The second part will deal with when you are at Stern, how exactly will you makes similar changes happen and will embrace your tagline. Basically, that's the idea. So I don't recommend going over one resource. So just stick to one resource because there's a word limit on this, and you cannot talk about more than one. Because when you talk about one resource, I want you to talk about who told you about that resource. I want you to talk about when are you going to utilize that resource. I also want you to talk about what that resource is. Why is that resource important to you? How exactly are you going to leverage the resource? All of those things jammed into that plans at Stern thing. So it only leaves you with so much word count. So it's all about the depth. The biggest mistake people make is that they list down 10 or 15 resources in one. That is not going to help you. You'll get rejected immediately. Next, we have the second essay. Okay, so the second essay is pretty straightforward. Pick six. So they want you to pick six images which define you as a person. So think about this in terms of like the previous essay. How does change affect you as a person? How welcoming are you towards change? Right. So this makes things much easier for you because now you have to pick six pictures which kind of reflect on different experiences about changes. So if you're talking about an international travel, for instance, so if you're going to different territories, you're learning from different cultures, you're learning from different places, that is a form of change. You try to include that in your tagline and also reflect on that and make it seen through a picture. So if someone sees the picture and if someone also reads the tagline and they can see that tagline reflected in that picture, you are an immediate winner in the MBA application. So this is something that I strongly suggest you guys to try. Next, I want you to think about your brand, basically what your personal brand is towards the school. So if you think about the brand, what exactly are you thinking about? Like, are you someone who is like a hero, or are you someone who is like a rebel? Because they're both their own kinds of leader. And for change-based schools, I think rebels are a natural fit because they have the necessary qualities that these schools are actually looking for. They're challenging the status quo, they are challenging the norms, they're creating something new, they are willing to follow people based on based on their uniqueness, not just based on the status quo. So even as a leader, they follow the people who are unique, not just anyone. So that is the thing, like the rebel attitude is automatically fitting for NYU student, but that doesn't mean that you have to fake yourself. All the other different kinds of people can still be a good fit. So it's about your personal brand. So an image that shows your personal brand. How collaborative are you? How have you worked with the teams? Maybe that could be one of the other pictures. So that's again something to think about. And like I said, you have to treat both as essays as one because it's one application. It's not two different applications. It's one application. So try to keep things more integrated and it looks more coherent that way. So align with the values that we discussed on the very first slide, which was the excellence, IQ plus EQ, radically responsible, connected. Somewhere you need to show that alignment. And then you have to focus on the brand building, like I discussed. So what exactly is your personal brand that has to be reflected in the images? Even if you're talking about playing a certain sport, what exactly does that have to do with your brand and how exactly is that aligned with Stern? What does that have to do with Stern? All of these things actually matter. So once you have all of these things clear, think about those images. Some images will pop up and you just need to add a caption, which will be after each image. And then there will be a 3 sentence summary of those as an introduction. Like, why have you choose these 6 images in 3 sentences? So that would be your why. Why am I choosing these 6 images? So basically the idea is brand building. To summarize this in one, it's all about brand building. What exactly is your brand? How exactly do you want to communicate your brand to the school? And how exactly is that brand aligned with that of the school? So easier way of dealing with this is if you are using any generative AI platform, or if you just want to search it on the internet, just look for the brand matrix. It will give you an idea what brand matrix is and what exactly is the structure for that, and try to see if you fit into one of those or not. And then when you fit into one of those, try to see if it aligns with NYU Stern or not. So that's basically the idea behind this essay. Okay, now we have the resume, one of the more important sections and often underestimated. So for resume, we usually need a resume right in front of our eyes to actually make any judgment. But it's completely fine. I'll give you a good set of checklist that will help you understand how to create an impactful resume. So let's begin with that. All right. So the first word to remember is the format. Resume obviously needs to have some important sections like your name, email address, phone number, and if possible, your LinkedIn profile link. This is usually followed by education, employment, and extracurriculars. This is usually how most of the people see the resume. That's completely fine. While there is no specific format, I still believe that only the most important section should be kept. The space is limited and you only have like one page, so you have to think twice before making any judgments here. So what do I mean by that? Some example on that would be that some of the people who are coming from technology industry, they are uh, very skilled, obviously, but at the same time, the certifications that they have and all the knowledge that they have gained over the years, I would say it's kind of more technical, less MBA like. So anything that has nothing to do with an MBA can actually be removed. So if you have experience in SQL, that's fine. You have experience in Python, that's fine. But if you have experience in like languages like C, C++, Java, etc., that have nothing to do with the MBA, and they have nothing to do with your post MBA goal. Such sections are not needed. They are just space consuming section, in my opinion, and that will eat up more space on your resume. So, what exactly are the sections that are important? The sections that are important would be things that are more pertaining to your post MBA goals. So have your goal in mind and then see what exactly are the things that are more relevant to that and then put those there, not just anything. So the education section usually is the first. It can also be after the employment, but if you put it first, it's fine. It must list your bachelor's and master's degrees and a very short bullet on what exactly were your extracurriculars during your time there. So the purpose of this section is basically to see if you will be involved in a similar capacity in the business school. So be intentional about this. If you ever attended a business school session, you must already know that they say that the past activities are a great reflection of your future. That's what matters. I got a lot of questions on how to write your employment if you're also a part-time business owner. This is perfectly fine to create separate sections on that. And I have already ensured to show that in the samples so you can go through those when you look at that. Next, we have consistency. By consistency, I mean the consistency in format of your resume bullet points. The most popular industry format is the PARS format or PARS format, which stands for problem, action, results, and skills. So problem, action, results, and skills. As the acronym already suggests, you start by defining the problem that you're trying to solve. So it could be marketing, engineering, sales, whatever your function is, even innovation these days. So you're trying to solve a problem that can help the company that you work for succeed. So that's the first part. Move on to define the actions that you took to address it in very short, and what results came out of that, and what skills you used. Focus on your people skills mostly in this scenario because MBA mostly focuses on your people skills. If you have too much technical jargon, like too many abbreviations, too much technical jargon, try to remove that. Focus on your people skills. Simplify it so much that even a 10-year-old can understand that. So that's the idea. PAR format is basically just parse format with the skills section removed. It helps shorten the bullet, but the skills are blended into the actions itself. Then there is the RAS format, which stands for results, actions, skills, where putting the results first helps you make the impact come first. And in case someone is skimming through your resume, they can get surprised that how did you manage to do that, and makes them more curious to read more. There's no preference for one format over the other, but I must tell you that you should not be mixing and matching this all in one resume. So if you're using PARS, PAR, and RS in one resume, that's bad. Only one consistent bullet format should be used per resume. So PARS, PAR, or RAS, or not and. So make sure one bullet point format per resume. Next, we have quantification. And this is the most heard of thing in the MBA admissions industry. Your bullets need to be well quantified. While quantification is usually more or less mandatory in the impact side, we already read the consistency, like the format. The impact is the results. So it's mandatory there. It would not hurt to mention the size of the team if you led the people for a particular incident to further make the bullets more powerful. So the more quantified it is, like the more credible your bullet points look. If you think you don't know how to quantify the bullet, that's actually fine, but just understand why exactly are you existing in that organization in that case. And even if that doesn't help, try to see how exactly is your company making money out of you. And the thoughts will just start popping up, and it will give you an idea on how you're being used to make money out of the business, and that will give you some quantification and some purpose in your business at least. And as it says on the slide, you can highlight operational efficiency, revenue increase, sales, whatever you want, with the numbers, percentage, and cash, depending on what you did. Just remember that you need to enter the currency of the country that you're applying to. So for NYU, that would be US dollars. I can understand that because of the purchasing power parity and also the exchange rate difference. The converted amount may look smaller in dollars. So you can accompany this with the percentage change in something to show some greater impact so that they can understand and they have a good understanding of the currency exchange rate difference. It's understandable. So you can still work with that. Next, we have branding. Branding is probably the one thing that will be the most important for your NYU application, because literally your essays are asking for the same thing. And I'm also saying the same thing in the resume, because branding is something I say in all the resume, but here it is literally being highlighted. So let me say this. A hero can rarely be a sage, and a sage can rarely be a rebel. What do I mean by that? So all three have different personalities, as you can see. A hero is someone who steps in and takes the responsibility for the people and solves their problem to rally people behind them. So someone who solves people's problem, takes responsibility for the people naturally, is kind of a hero, and people rally behind them because of that attitude. A sage is someone who shares the wisdom and helps solve the problem of the people through the wisdom, like consultants. So people rally behind them because of their wisdom and intelligence. So that is the sage personality. Then there's the rebel, that is someone that disrupts the status quo by creating something completely different from the norm. And their rebellious attitude and their uniqueness attracts people who rally behind them because they were too frustrated with the status quo, or they just find the uniqueness too appealing. So that is the idea. Like I said, the rebels fit in this change maker mold really easily because it's a natural fit. But at the same time, you can also see that the sage can also fit into this, because a sage can also cause a change in the lives of the people because of the wisdom that they had. So they caused a change somewhere of some sort, and that happened seriously. So, and a hero changes the lives of the people by taking responsibility for them because they couldn't do something themselves. So it's really dependent on you how you fit your personality into the school. Sometimes there is a natural misfit. So, like, probably don't apply because you'll get rejected anyway. So why bother? So that's the suggestion. Then we have the thing that is written right there on the page, which is you should remember that you're a business leader, and the way you show your brand needs to stay consistent in your essays, resume, and LOR, and your people skills are the ones that matter. So, what do I mean by staying consistent in essays, resume, and LORs? Let me clarify. So, let's assume that you have asked someone to write your letter of recommendation, maybe your supervisor, and they have written a glowing letter of recommendation. They have given you 5 stars on everything. They have said that you are the most brilliant person that they have seen in their lives. Everything is perfect, everything is positive from what they have tried to say. But now here's the thing. In your essays, let's say you have shown yourself as a rebel just because you want to fit yourself with NYU Stern. Not saying that NYU Stern is exclusively looking for rebels, but just taking an example from there. So let's say you said that you are a rebel in your essays, and in your LORs, it says that you are like a sage, someone who shares the wisdom, something like that. So it's positive, but it's misaligned. So that is also a recipe to rejection, because many people who have perfectly good statistics still get rejected from the business schools. And this could be a reason why, because their brand is misaligned. They have said something in their application, and to confirm that, they have seen the LORs and they found something completely conflicting with that. So that's the idea there. Like, why exactly is that happening? That's what matters. So remember this, make sure that your brand stays consistent in not just your essays and LORs, but also your resume. So that's branding. Moving on to goals. This is perhaps like the most overlooked part, forgetting that your resume needs to contain transferable skills more relevant to your post MBA goals. Here's how you can modify your resume to meet those requirements. First, let's take the industry that's going on in your mind. So let's take investment banking, for example. So next you have to take the function. So usually people join at an associate level post MBA. So that's much easier to do. Then the target company that you have in mind, maybe Morgan and Stanley, maybe JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, whichever you want. So that's the idea. Just choose one company. And then in schools, feeder location, obviously, New York, feeder location, literally in the place where the business happens. So uh, let's take New York. Now, all you have to do is just look up the job description on the internet for the position that you have in mind for the particular company in the particular city. And once you do that, you will be able to see what job description is coming up. And you can pick out the key skills from that job description and see if your bullets match those, and then plug those in. So that's the easiest way to make sure that your goals are aligned. But a better way of dealing with this is to use the generative AI tools and let them give you the overlapping keywords. So you just put your bullets in there and then you put in the job description and see what exactly are the overlapping keywords. The Gen AI gives you the overlapping keywords and you put those in your bullets. So you remember that you're using AI as a tool, not to create the resume bullets or your entire application. So you're using AI as a tool, not to create the applications, but to see the overlap. So there is a difference in using AI in the application. You're not creating the application with AI. If you do, that would be a risky move. So that's the essays and the LOR and the resume. You'll get the LORs in the group, obviously, for the sample. Finally, we are here at the end of this session. A little news for you before we move on to the Q&A and samples. MBA Times is offering the Hail Mary service at a discount of 50%. You will only have to pay $250 per school to get personalized one-time feedback on your whole application, from resume and essays to extracurriculars. So every single thing on your application, one-time feedback, one shot, all things covered, and complete feedback. So if you're in a rush to submit the application and you want to get that, you can always opt in for that service. You can use the code Stern Mega Fair 2025 to avail the offer. We also have bulk discounts should you choose to opt for it. So website will have an option to select the number of schools. So you can scan the QR code and that will take you to the website. So QR code is right there on the left. Code is right here on the right. You can take the screenshot of this page if you want to. It will also be available in the summary. I also suggest people to just stock things if you want to, like if you want to stock one or two Hail Mary service options, you can always do that. Then alternatively, you can visit MBA Times by going to www.mba-times.com/quote to request the quote yourself. And this offer is limited to the MBA Fair registrants and attendees only. So make sure that you register and you're an attendee. I think you are, because if you're watching this session, this is where you need to be. That's mostly all for the day. And as promised, I will take you to the WhatsApp group page. So you can scan this link, scan this QR code, and it will take you to the WhatsApp group. And I'll see you right there on the WhatsApp group. Right now, I'll just end the live stream.